Quito and Mbwambo had never believed in spirits, curses, or the old whispers about shadow guardians who watched over the spice island of Zanzibar. He was a fisherman, plain and unadorned, and he believed in what he could hold: the coarse rope of his nets, the splintered wood of his dhow, and the warm weight of a fresh-caught tuna slabbing against his palm. Every morning he rose before the call to prayer, mended his lines by lantern light, and pushed his small boat into the turquoise waters off the Mangapwani coast. The island of Unguja, called Zanzibar by the traders who came and went on foreign dhows, smelled of cloves, nutmeg, cinnamon, and salt. Its shores were lined with coral stone and baobab trees older than any living memory. Quito lived simply there with his mother, Mama Salha, in a whitewashed hut with a leaking roof that he kept meaning to fix. He knew the names of every wind, every current, every hidden reef that could tear the belly out of a careless boat, but he did not know the name of the thing sleeping in his blood. On the night the villagers called Mwezi wa Damu, the moon of blood, a total lunar eclipse turned the sky the color of old bruises, and the sea went still as a held breath. Quito had been salting his catch when the first wave of heat struck him behind his ribs, not like fever, but like a second heart forcing itself into existence alongside the first. His joints cracked with sounds like breaking branches. His gums throbbed as if teeth were pushing through from somewhere deep and ancient. He tried to call for his mother, but his voice came out as a guttural rasp. He stumbled outside, hoping the night air would cool him, but the moonlight hit his bare skin like a physical blow. His spine bent backward, his fingers fused and reformed into claws. When his vision finally cleared from the white-hot agony of transformation, he was on all fours, panting, smelling everything: the damp earth, the distant cloves, the sweat of a sleeping village, and the sharp, coppery tang of fresh blood. At his feet lay Juma, his neighbor's 19-year-old son, chest torn open from throat to navel, dead eyes staring at the swollen red moon. Quito did not remember killing him, but the blood on his muzzle told him everything he needed to know. He fled into the dark cathedral of the Jozani forest, leaving a trail of crimson paw prints and a single howling thought behind him: I am a monster. He awoke naked and screaming beneath the tangled canopy of giant mahogany trees, their roots curling around him like the fingers of buried gods. The Jozani forest was dark even at noon, but in the hour before dawn it felt like the inside of a tomb. Quito's body was human again, or something close to it, but his mouth tasted of copper. His fingernails were rimmed with dried blood, and every muscle in his body felt as though it had been torn from the bone and hastily stitched back. He crawled on his belly to a nearby stream, cupped his hands into the cold water, and drank until his stomach heaved. Then he vomited bile and salt water and a few dark clots of something he refused to name. He lay there shivering, pressing his forehead into the mud, waiting for the nightmare to end. But the nightmare did not end. Juma's face kept swimming behind his closed eyelids, the boy who had smiled at him just yesterday at the market, who had asked Quito if the fishing was good, who had bought 2 barracuda for his mother's birthday feast. Dead, torn open, by him. You didn't kill him on purpose. The voice came from behind him, calm as still water. Quito spun around, scrambling backward until his spine hit a tree root. An old man sat on a fallen log, peeling a mango with a bone-handled knife. He wore tattered robes that might once have been white, and around his neck hung a necklace of lion claws that clicked softly when he moved. His skin was the color of weathered ebony, deeply wrinkled, and his eyes, pale amber like honey held up to sunlight, glowed faintly in the dim forest light. He did not look afraid. He did not look surprised. He looked instead like a man who had been waiting a very long time. My name is Mse Juma, the old man said, taking a slow bite of mango. "And before you ask, yes, same name as the boy you killed last night. He was my great-nephew, the third child of my youngest brother's daughter." He chewed thoughtfully, swallowed, and wiped juice from his chin with the back of his hand. "And before you run again, boy, you should know that I am the reason you are still breathing. I was the one who dragged your wolf body here through the mangroves while your mind was lost. I covered your tracks. I told the villagers you had sailed north to avoid the blood moon." He leaned forward, and his amber eyes grew brighter, burning like two coals in the darkness. "The question is not whether you are a monster, Quito. The question is whether you are ready to learn what you truly are." Quito wanted to run. Every instinct in his newly shattered mind screamed at him to flee deeper into the forest, to find a cave somewhere and crawl inside until the world forgot he existed. But Mzee Juma's amber eyes held him in place like iron chains, and something else, something deeper than fear, whispered that the old man was telling the truth. "What am I?" Quito finally asked, his voice cracked and raw from the screaming. The old man finished his mango, tossed the peel into the undergrowth, and stood with a slowness that spoke of ancient bones and older patience. He walked to Quito, knelt down and placed a weathered palm against the younger man's chest, right over his still racing heart. "You are Mwizi wa Mwezi," Mzee Juma said softly, "the moon thief, the last of the Wanyama Watakatifu, the sacred beasts. Your ancestors were not men who turned into wolves, Quito. They were wolves blessed by the moon goddess Nyawanga, given the gift of walking as men so they could guard these islands. For 3,000 years, your bloodline has protected Zanzibar from things that crawl up from the deep ocean trenches and things that fall from the stars on nights without moon." Quito shook his head, tears mixing with the grime on his face. "I'm a fisherman. I mend nets. I sell tuna at the Stone Town market. I can't be... I killed a boy. I killed your great-nephew." Mzee Juma's expression did not harden, but something in it sharpened, like a blade being drawn from a sheath. "You killed him because you were never taught the Mwezi Raha, the moon piece. Your grandmother was the last guardian before you, but she died when your father was still a boy. She had no chance to pass down the knowledge. The wolf inside you has been sleeping for 22 years, and when the blood moon woke it, you had no reins, no saddle, no way to guide it. That is not your fault. But what you do now, that is your responsibility." He stood and extended his hand. "You have two choices, Quito of the Mwambo bloodline. You can run, find a remote island, chain yourself in a cave every full moon, and live out your days as a hermit. Or you can stay. You can learn to control the wolf, and you can prepare for what is coming." Quito looked up at the old man's hand, then at his own blood-stained fingers. "What is coming?" Mzee Juma smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "A hunter, a thing from across the sea that has killed every other werewolf in the world, and now it knows you are alive." 3 days later, while Quito hid in the forest learning to control the wolf under Mzee Juma's harsh and loving tutelage, a steamship unlike any seen in Zanzibar's waters docked at the Stone Town harbor. It was called the Silver Quill, a sleek vessel of black iron and dark wood, and it flew no flag that any dockworker recognized. From its gangplank descended a man in a white linen suit so immaculate it seemed to repel the very dust of the island. His name was Lord Percival Ashworth, and he was beautiful in the way a deep ocean current is beautiful, cold, ancient, graceful, and utterly indifferent to the lives it crushed.
His skin was pale as milk, his hair black as wet coal, and his eyes, a shade of red so faint it might have been mistaken for brown in poor light, swept across the crowd of onlookers with the lazy assessment of a predator counting sheep. Behind him came a woman named Dredger, her face a road map of scars, carrying a rifle etched with silver runes that seemed to drink the sunlight around them. Behind her marched 40 mercenaries in matching gray coats, men and women who had hunted krakens off the coast of Greenland, strangled yetis in the frozen passes of the Himalayas, and burned the last known phoenix in the Urals. They moved with the precision of a single organism, and the villagers of Stonetown parted before them like water before a blade. Lord Ashworth walked to the center of the market square, where the morning fish auction had been interrupted into silence, and smiled a smile that did not reach his dead eyes. "I am a collector," he announced, his voice carrying effortlessly to every corner of the square, despite its conversational volume. "I have traveled the world in search of rare and extraordinary creatures, and word has reached me that your island recently produced a most interesting death, a young man torn apart on the night of the eclipse by something with teeth far larger than any lion's." He tapped his femur walking stick against the coral stone. "I am willing to pay handsomely for information. Gold, medicine, weapons. Name your price." His smile widened, and for just a moment the crowd saw the flash of teeth that were too white, too sharp, too numerous. "Or I can take what I need by other means."
Zuri found Quito at the edge of the mangroves, knee-deep in black water, trying to scrub the dried blood from under his fingernails with a handful of coarse sand. She was 24 years old, the daughter of a Swahili herbalist and an Osmani sea trader, and she moved through the forest with a silence that would have impressed the hunters of Lord Ashworth's private army. Her hands knew every root, bark, berry, and poison on the island, and her grandmother had once been married to a man who could speak to the spirits of the baobab trees. Mzee Juma had sent her, though he had not explained why. He had simply said, "Go, he is drowning, and you are the only anchor he will accept." She stood at the water's edge for a long moment, watching Quito scrape at skin that had long since been clean, and she felt something shift in her chest. Not pity exactly, but recognition. She knew the look of a man who had seen the worst version of himself and could not look away. "You're not cursed," she said quietly, lowering herself to sit on an exposed root. Quito did not look up. His hands kept moving, sand and blood and water swirling together. "You're incomplete. Your grandmother, your father's mother, Fatima Mbwambo, she was the last guardian before you. She knew the Mwezi Ra, the moon piece, but she died of the wasting sickness when your father was only 7 years old. She never taught anyone." She pulled a small play bottle from the pouch at her waist and set it on the root beside her. "Without the moon piece, the wolf owns you. You don't own the wolf. That is why you woke up with blood on your hands and no memory of how it got there." Quito finally stopped scrubbing. He turned his head slowly, and Zuri saw that his eyes, which had been warm brown just a few days ago, now had flecks of amber floating in them like embers in ash. "Can you teach me?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Zuri shook her head. "No, I am not a wolf. I cannot walk the path you walk." She picked up the clay bottle, uncorked it, and poured a small amount of its contents into her palm, a dark liquid that smelled of earth, iron, and something sweet like overripe fruit. "But I can walk beside you. Tonight, on the waning gibbous, we will drink this together, a tea of Muaro Baini leaves, powdered moon jellyfish, and my own blood."
She met his terrified eyes without flinching. "And when the wolf rises, I will not run. I will stay, and I will remind you who you are."
The full moon rose over Zanzibar like a silver coin pulled from the depths of the Indian Ocean, and Lord Percival Ashworth stood in the center of the ruined Persian baths, his arms spread wide as if to embrace the night itself. Around him lay the bodies of the mercenaries he had drained when they tried to flee, their throats torn, their faces frozen in terror, their blood pooling in the cracks between ancient stones. He had needed their life force for the ritual, needed the warmth of 40 human hearts to open the door between worlds, and now the door stood ajar. In his hand he held a silver blade etched with runes older than Rome, and on the altar before him waited the final ingredient, the heart of the last werewolf, still beating. But Quito did not come as a man, and he did not come as a wolf. He came as both. 7 feet of corded muscle and midnight fur, walking upright on legs that bent like a man's, but ended in claws that could carve stone. Zuri walked behind him, her hands glowing with the pale light of moon jellyfish powder, singing the old lullaby that her grandmother had sung to dying men. The vampire turned, and for the first time in 500 years, fear flickered across his dead features. "Impossible," Ashworth whispered. "You cannot be both." Quito stepped forward, and the silver bullets that struck him from the vampire's hidden pistol flattened against his chest like rain on a roof. "I am not the wolf you came to hunt," Quito said, his voice a rumble of thunder and gravel. "I am the one who was always hunting you." He crossed the distance in a single stride, drove his clawed hand through Ashworth's chest, and pulled out the black, withered heart. He crushed it in his fist, and the vampire turned to dust, not screaming, not cursing, simply ceasing, as if he had never existed at all. Zuri lowered her hands, the lullaby ended, and Quito fell to his knees, human again, weeping not from grief, but from relief. She knelt beside him and held him as the moon set. They say he still walks Zanzibar, a fisherman by day, a guardian by night, husband to Zuri, father to 2 amber-eyed children. And when the moon is full, the villagers leave offerings of raw meat and cloves at the edge of the Jozani forest, and they whisper his name with reverence. Babu Mwezi, Grandfather Moon, the last werewolf of Zanzibar, and the first of a new kind.